So welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We're glad you're here, students, to listen and learn about Bard University. My name is Jeff Crowley. I'll be your host and facilitator. Just want to share a few things with you right now. At the end of the day, we will have a Q&A that's a part of the session. You can type those questions. They'll be answered along the way. If they don't get answered, they can be answered afterwards by the university. You will be muted. You will be off camera the entire time. This is being recorded, so if you want to look at it later or share it with friends. Again, if you have any questions at the end, I'll answer them. And at this point, I will turn off my screen and let it take over by Kate.
Thank you so much for the introduction. I'm going to open up my screen and share a bit of a slideshow with you all, and then we'll get started with introductions on our end. Again, please do feel free to use the Q&A as we go. If we don't get to your questions as we chat with you about the Bard experience, we will get to them at the end. We're going to try to keep our presentation pretty short and sweet so that we have plenty of time for questions. But this is my contact information, and if you would like my co-moderator's contact information, you can always follow up with me and I can connect you with them, so we can all make sure to stay connected that way. But if you have follow-up questions that you'd like to keep in touch about, you can always feel free to follow up with me. I love hearing from you, and I'm really excited to have you all joined with us tonight to learn a little bit more about Bard. My name is Kate Hardy. I'm Senior Associate Director of Admission at Bard. I'm also Bard alumna, class of 2007, and so I'm happy to talk about the student experience, but I'm hoping I won't have to do much of that because I'm joined by two fabulous co-moderators who are both current students at Bard, and I'm going to have them introduce themselves. Nike, do you want to go first?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Renike, but I go by Nike. I use she, her, hers pronouns. I'm from Chicago, Illinois, and I'm majoring in political studies at Bard. A couple things that I'm involved with on campus besides working for the best office on campus. I'm on the women's volleyball team, so we are a D3 collegiate team who plays in the Liberty League. I'm also a member of the Student Athletic Council. I'm the chair of the Diversity, Inclusion, and Equity Committee on the council. I do a bunch of various dance clubs, and I'm also a member of the Pre-Law Society. I'll throw it to Kwa.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kwa. I'm a current junior at Bard. I use they, them, as well as he, him pronouns interchangeably. Either way is fine. I'm studying economics with a concentration in finance, and on campus, I'm a part of I've been a PC before. I'm part of the admissions office as a tour guide. I'm also the head of the Asian Student Organization. So just a few things I'm part of.
Thank you both so much. Thank you for being here and sharing your experiences in advance. I'm going to rely on you as I go through the slides. And again, if anyone in the audience has questions about anything we say, please feel free to share those in the Q&A. Because we'll make sure to leave time for questions at the end. I'm going to go pretty quickly through the next few slides. This is a shot of our Performing Arts Center, a wonderful sort of space on the northern end of our campus that houses our theater and dance programs. This is not a recent photo. We're doing more social distancing than this on campus right now. But the front end of this presentation is just to give you some visuals of the campus. And this is definitely a space where certainly a lot of our performing artists spend a lot of their time, but also students who are showing up for their friends performing or visiting artists that are performing in this space, and it's open all summer for a big festival. This is all 1,000 acres of our campus, so I'm going to pause here for a little bit just to give an overview of where we are in the world. We are located in New York's mid-Hudson River Valley. So the Hudson River is the body of water at the top. The Catskill Mountains are across the way. The mid-Hudson River Valley is located midway between where the Hudson River starts in the Adirondacks and where it ends in New York City. So we're right in the middle. This line that bisects the river here across the top is actually the Amtrak train that goes right into Penn Station in Midtown Manhattan. So we're about 15 minutes from the closest train station, which is an Amtrak station, and about 30 to 40 minutes from the Metro North line, which is the commuter line. So there are two trains that go into New York City within pretty close proximity to Bard that makes New York City accessible, but not so accessible that it becomes a social scene. So that's just to kind of give you a sense of proximity, and it means that there's a really vibrant, active campus community that happens here in Annandale, and we'll give that life a little bit more later in the presentation when we talk about student life. I do want to acknowledge, though, that this land wasn't always ours. This was Mohican First Nations land originally, and that's really important to acknowledge. And the Mohican tribe is now largely located in Connecticut on a reservation. That's most widely known because there's a casino there. But this was colonized by Henry Hudson, who the river is named after, and the Dutch when New York was New Netherlands, and gradually was taken over and bought up by the sort of titans of industry of the 18th and 19th centuries. And so Bard is the fusion of three different very pastorally beautiful Hudson River Valley estates. So behind me is the Blythewood Garden, which is one of the most exceptional views of the Hudson River Valley. But I think we also like to acknowledge the fact that alongside this sort of opulence and wealth that gave us this beautiful campus is also a history of servitude. And there's a lot of really wonderful engaged liberal arts and science coursework that we can talk about a little bit later too, that kind of uses, especially the Montgomery Place estate, as a way of kind of bringing life to that part of our history too, which is important to talk about and important to commemorate and honor as we, I think, experience it and enjoy it as Bardians. Bard has changed a lot since our founding in 1860, which is fine. 1860 was a bad year for a lot of people. We are no longer the all men's Episcopal seminary that we were founded as. We are now no longer all male. We are now no longer Episcopal, and we are now no longer a seminary. We are a pretty quintessential liberal arts and sciences college that is really dynamically diverse in a lot of important ways, and really embraces the value of the liberal arts. And I think embraces the value of having a residential community where students get to play a very intentional role in shaping that community and that institutional culture. The student participation and ownership piece is something that's really central to the Bard experience. And hopefully that comes to life. And if there are any questions about our location, please do let us know. We're also hosting live virtual tours throughout the fall. So you can join us that way too. Kwa and Nike, do you want to just speak quickly to your favorite, one of your favorite places on campus where you like to spend time to kind of bring it to life a little bit?
Yeah, so I really like, so like if you can see on North Campus, it's like right in between like one of like our bigger like upper college dorms and the health center. Is like our upper college dorm's called Robbins. There's like this really pretty view of like the sunset and the Catskills. Also the view from the turf field is also really pretty. So I like to be there a lot.
Yeah, no. Go ahead, Kwa.
Okay. I'd some of my favorite spots on campus are definitely like these cliffs close to Blythewood Mansion. So they like oversee the Hudson River. It's really beautiful. It's kind of secluded actually. So and then another place is the Parliament of Reality. I just love that koi fish pond. It's so peaceful and beautiful over there. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely lots of space for contemplation. I think Bard students appreciate the collective, but I think also appreciate time to themselves. I think we have a lot of introverted extroverts or extroverted introverts, like people who are sort of ambiverts. So I think appreciate both, and Bard definitely, I think, gives a lot of space for that, literally and figuratively. And yeah, there are these amazing kind of vistas on campus that kind of catch you by surprise. I do also want to say that there is more around Bard than just cows and corn. So although we're classified as a rural campus by most college guidebooks, it's kind of, for lack of a better term, for where we are, which is a pretty small town environment, but there is infrastructure around Bard. So within 5 minutes are the towns of Red Hook and Tivoli, where there are some really great restaurants and grocery stores and banks and pharmacies and places to get things that you might need. And then within about 20 to 30 minutes are the smaller cities of Kingston and Hudson, which allow for access to things like Target and sort of more widely known chain restaurants. If you want Panera or Chipotle, you can get that in Kingston. Also, there are some pretty There's some pretty great music venues and kind of places to see like live performances, and some also like sort of cute downtowns in both of the smaller cities. But they're also gentrifying really aggressively right now. So that'll be interesting to kind of see the role that BARD plays in that, because there are a lot of meaningful civic engagement projects that happen locally as well. BARD sees ourselves BARD does not see our campus as a gated community, and that's an important part of our ethos, I think, is sort of sharing resources and collaborating with the community. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but that's an important part of things too. I'm going to go quickly through these visuals. These are just a few more visuals of students and the campus. This is down by the Sauk Hill waterfall, a great place to swim in the summer. This is in our science lab during citizen science. This is out behind Manor House during our matriculation ceremony. These are BARD students playing, which is a big part of the social scene, the performance scene. This is a BARD farm, which filters about 30,000 pounds of produce into our dining hall. And this lands us at our academic structure, where we're going to spend a little time. This is just an overview of our core academic program. So BARD does not have a fully open curriculum. We do have a structure. And a lot of that structure is defined by these 5 pillars. The first 3 of which all happen in the first year. And are really about the universal skill building that happens in the liberal arts. That's literally what the liberal arts means, is universal skills. And so the first 3 are really about the building of those universal skills. So language and thinking, first year seminar, citizen science. It's about the kind of universal tools that you need in order to navigate the liberal arts effectively overall, but also about just acclimating to a seminar-based learning environment and to the campus in Annandale, and figuring out where you are in the world and what kind of community you're a part of, and finding your people and all of that. Moderation and senior project are about kind of honing in on an area of study that is interesting to you. So declaring a major and ultimately doing a professional caliber piece of work in that area of study. And now I'm going to rely a little bit more on Kwa and Nike to help me elaborate on this. This is the structure of our first year curriculum. And Nike, I'm wondering if you can kind of bring language and thinking to life a little bit more in a nutshell. Just talk about what it is and the value that it has.
Yeah, I think language and thinking is really interesting because it's kind of like an extended freshman orientation, but also I find it really interesting and really cool is because it actually really talks about and shows BARD's work towards equity, because the whole idea of language and thinking is to give everyone like the basic skills that a BARD student would need to succeed, which, you know, coming from different places, different systems, different everything, it might be difficult for everyone to have. So I really do appreciate that part of language and thinking, as well as it's a really cool time to just like meet first years, get involved, as well as I know some of my my counterparts at other universities, some of my friends, they actually had to pick their classes without an advisor, but during language and thinking, you get to meet your advisor, so you get an academic advisor, so you're able to like help so they can help you pick your classes as well. So I think it's just like a really good time to meet people. You get to meet some of the club heads. You get to kind of do a lot of activities. There's so many clubs on campus, which we'll talk about later when we talk about student life, but it's kind of like a really good opportunity to see what it feels like to be a BARD student right before you get there. And also it's kind of low stakes because it is pass fail. So you're able to kind of just try out everything to see if you like it.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I think that's an amazing overview of, I think, why it's important, and the fact that it's something that's truly distinctive to BARD. It doesn't really exist anywhere else. And it kind of leads in a lot of ways into first year seminar, which I think is kind of a more, it's sort of a transition into formalizing the structures that you start to learn about in L&T, formalizing the learning techniques that you start to learn about in L&T, where you're kind of adjusting to the fact that you're using reading, writing, and discussion as your primary tools for engagement, not Scantron sheets and multiple choice questions and standardized tests. You're really being able to sort of infuse your learning experience with original perspective and think about the world in an interdisciplinary way, not in a way that's sort of siloed into concrete programs of study. And Kwa, I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about what you were able to kind of get out of your first year seminar experience and what its value was for you.
For sure. Coming from like a large high school, I think I was really appreciative of the first year seminar experience in the sense that it introduced me to kind of how BARD classrooms, run generally. And so, it's 12 to 15 other students with your professor, usually around a large table, and that's usually how class conducted. And that was something that was very new to me. And I think that this was a great class to kind of get introduced to that setup. Speaking that wasn't what I was used to. And so I think allowing students to kind of, build like a fundamental level of, reading and writing in this class, as well as being able to contribute to the conversations that are happening in class is really important. And I think one unique thing that really makes this class so unique is the fact that each professor of a first year seminar class doesn't necessarily have to be like a literature or philosophy professor. And so our message there is kind of like, you don't necessarily have to be a philosophy or literature major in order to speak about these really important texts. And these texts are, there's a variety of different texts you'll be reading actually throughout your entire first year seminar, along with 4 papers each semester. And so, you'll be reading your Western canon writers, but also your Eastern canon writers. And so that was actually recently introduced into the first year seminar. And so I think that really just shows that like things like programs like these are always evolving depending on the students' interests. And I think that's really important for an institution like Bard. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think that the fact that first year seminar adjusts with the times, and also I think encourages faculty to kind of engage as amateurs, which I think is a little bit of a hallmark of Bard. The fact that faculty, I think, are willing to step outside of their own comfort zones, which is unusual in academia in a lot of ways. And I think that that allows for faculty to kind of give over the ownership to their students in a different way too, and allow for students to really lead the conversation in a lot of ways and really bring their own perspectives to the table and kind of begin that collegial relationship that really exists between faculty and students at Bard. And finally, citizen science, which is kind of the bookend to language and thinking, which is about kind of integrating STEM learning into everyone's understanding of the liberal arts and sciences. And Nikkei, as somebody who's not majoring in STEM, I'd love to hear your perspective on sort of the value that it had for you.
Yeah, Kate said it. I'm not a STEM head. The rest of my family is, but I'm not. So I appreciated citizen science because I was able to do something that I personally engaged with. So there's different strands, and that just came along me and Kwa's freshman year, which also I want to say, like, Bard students were like, the citizen science like structure wasn't working for everyone. So they talked to the administration, and the administration was like, okay, great. Like, we'll make it so everyone can study what they want. So there's 4 strands. There's communication, education, lab work, and community action. Yeah, so each one kind of like, you choose whichever you want. I really appreciated it because especially now during this time, our class talked a lot about like, can science actually be like tangible through like a social media feed? And everything that I'm learning, that I learned then, I think about now, and like I continue to think about because I think it's very prevalent. And also a lot of cool things happened during then. There's a Martin Luther King Day of Engagement where our Center for Civic Engagement comes together. There's a huge list of things that you can participate in. It can range from going to a panel or going to actually like volunteer at a food bank, cleaning up spaces. There's different things that you can do to get involved. Also, there's a lot of really cool events that goes on. So even though like you have like, it kind of sucks to like get your winter break cut off, but honestly, I was sick at home and I was ready to go back to Bard with my friends. So like, it was a really good time.
Yeah, no, I think it's the first year at Bard is an intensive year. I think that can't be denied. I think it exists that way for a reason. I think the reason why we spend so much time talking about the academics in our presentations about Bard is that they're a central part of the experience, and the rigor is real. But it's real for a reason, and I think that's in part because that's a big part of why you choose to go to college, so that you are engaging with things that are academically challenging to you, but in a way that's meaningful and in a way that is giving you a lot that you will carry into not only the rest of your 4 years at Bard, but also kind of the way that you think about the world beyond your college experience too. And that's a big part of what the first year is about, is giving everyone those skills held in common. Again, moderation and senior project are about sort of honing in on your major, and they're aspects of the curriculum that are really unique to Bard, but I think give our students a really unique amount of ownership and intentionality to their experience. Moderation is our special process for declaring a major. And Kwa, as somebody who moderated pretty recently, I'd love for you to kind of talk about the importance of the process for you.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, I came into Bard intending on majoring in biology. And so with, the distribution requirements that we have at Bard, I was kind of just exploring the different, majors and departments that are at Bard. And so I took, a biology course, course and economics, dance, stuff like that. And I ended up falling in love with economics. And so one really cool thing that I really appreciate about moderation is that it usually occurs during your second semester of your sophomore year or the first semester of your junior year. So that really allows you the time of a year and a half to really explore the different courses that we offer. And so that by the time of your moderation, you can really kind of know what is for you, what you think is the best a major. And so for me, I had transitioned from biology into economics after taking a variety of different classes. And so with this moderation process, you'll be writing, 2 papers, one of your past educational background leading up to a major you've chosen, as well as a future paper. And so I really wrote about kind of like my direction, why I'm passionate for the major, as most students are doing. So almost like a passion project in the sense that like you're indicating that you're truly passionate for a major, which is why you're majoring in it. And there's obviously a work that you have to do in order to show your passion. So it's just like off on a paper. It's more of like you write these 2 papers, and then there's also a third supplementing component of this moderation project. And that does vary depending on your major, but I think it really allows students to know that this truly is the major they want to major in. It is a little bit more than just check marking that you have an interest in a certain major. So I think that this process is very intentional in the sense that it allows students to, gain why they're majoring in it and prevent, in a way, changing majors. Of course, it's fine, but this is kind of like a step that can sometimes prevent that. So I think it's really unique and really helpful for a lot of students.
Yeah, and it's that intentionality is the really important part of it. I think being able to have a moment to really stop and reflect on what you've actually done over the course of your first 2 years and use your college experience as a way of figuring out what you want to do more of, as opposed to sort of deciding arbitrarily. And a big part of why moderation exists is also because of the existence of the senior project. And Nika, I know that you're still very much formulating your senior project. And so I definitely don't expect you to have a specific idea of what you'll be working on. But if you could talk a little bit about the senior project, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, so the senior project is pretty much, it's equivalent to a graduate thesis. Like, people are like writing this, doing a lot of things, work towards it. Like, you have a separate advisor for your senior project who helps you write it. And some of them average from like, I know some of them go over 100 pages, especially within like political studies, but it's definitely different from each major you have. I know like dance majors might have to compose like would have to like compose a full piece. A film major has to make like a short film. It definitely depends. And then studio arts, they put on a gallery show. Like, so, and they're really cool to go to. And like during like once senior project ends, it's honestly one of like my favorite times at Bard, because like it just shows like the environment of the campus that everyone literally just wants everyone else to succeed, because like you're going to your friends like we love to abbreviate things, so you're going to your friends like Spraw's show, like you're going like, and then you're going like all around for like 2 weeks just to kind of see what everyone's doing and what everyone's been working on within the year. For my senior project, I'm like bouncing between 2 ideas. So one, looking at like Pan-African political theory, but in a different diaspora besides the American diaspora. And then my other is protest fashion and looking at different modern political theories and trying to like intertwine that through different like different fashions throughout the decade. So like, like the punk era in the like the London punk era in like the 60s and the 70s, like things like that. So yeah, it really just depends. Like, it really changes all the time, and there's such a broad spectrum of what people do. And I know there's like a library online for you to see some of them, especially some of the ones that just graduated, because those were really cool. But yeah, I really like senior project, even though it's a lot of work. Like, it's something that I'm really looking forward to, because like, and I know my parents look forward to doing it because they wonder what I do at Bard and why I'm so busy. So like, I'm excited to show them like why I love it here and what I've been doing that whole time.
Yeah, no, it's this, I think what you spoke to is so amazing. I love both of your ideas. I can't wait to see what you do. And I think that the idea that it's something that's really personal, and something that I think you as on a personal level are really invested in, the fact that it kind of dissipates any competition that might exist between students, because everyone is on their individual journey and everyone is kind of engaging in their own way with what it is that they're studying. So BARD isn't a competitive environment academically because of this, I think. And yeah, the fact that it's this portfolio that you carry with you, and one of the copies that you print at the end is quite literally to hand over to your family and say, like, this is why I didn't call you for many weeks this spring. And it's a portfolio that you carry with you into your applying for jobs and your graduate school experiences, whatever your journey might be. And it's really hard for me to imagine the college experience without it, because it does feel like this really personal culmination. And this is just a note. This picture is of Micah, who is a pretty recent grad, and this is the dance studio in Fisher Center, where I took a dance class most semesters that I was at BARD, because it's a way for me to integrate fitness in a way to my I'm very uncoordinated in the gym. And so this was a way for me to integrate fitness into my life. It's a beautiful space. I often get asked about popular majors, and this is just a way of sort of visualizing that BARD doesn't really have programs or majors that are better, or that are top majors, or that are popular majors. It really ebbs and flows. And this is just to kind of illustrate that. So, the interest in social studies was really, really intense in 2014, and then took a little dip and now has gone back up. And so it's never about thinking through like what a liberal arts college does best. Our mandate as a liberal arts college is to have strong programs across the board, in part because you have access to all of this. I always hesitate to put up this slide, because I know that so many times students will like look for their sort of specific area of interest on this slide. But as Kwa talked about, you can come in thinking that you're interested in one thing, and you have this opportunity to diversify and take classes throughout the spectrum of all of these amazing programs, and figure out what resonates with you. And you might discover something new that you just didn't have the opportunity to experience in high school yet. Or you might discover kind of an interdisciplinary component of your main area of interest. You might be inspired to kind of incorporate something different into your senior project. And so I just like to kind of think about this as like a menu, and you can like eat it all. Like this is like an all you can eat menu of things that you get to experience in your time at BARD in ways that make sense for you. So you don't have to take Chemistry 101. You can take an amazing class on like the chemistry of cooking, or an amazing class on the physics of light and color. Or you can take an incredible human rights class on queer theory. There are so many amazing options in our course catalog, and you should definitely take a look at our course catalog. It's a great kind of window into BARD overall. Just a little bit of demographic information. We do have a pretty phenomenally diverse and global student body, and I think that this will only grow, and that's something that's really exciting. And I think BARD is growing around what it means to be an actively diverse institution. And I don't know that anyone ever fully arrives on that journey, because growth is always happening. And so it's exciting for me to kind of see these statistics increase over time, and to kind of experience a campus culture that is evolving around that. So this is just a little bit more about not only the diversity of our student body, but about the fact that we have a really participatory campus culture. So most of our classes are on average about 14 students. And so your lived experience is really part of your learning experience. And that I think comes to light in particular with things like the senior project. But I really want to get to student life, which I think is the most important thing that we can talk about right now. We have over 180 different student organizations. And Kwa and Nike, I just love for you to bring to life like how you spend your time. Because I think one of the incredible things is how you get to kind of lean into what's important to you. No BARD student has the same experience as anyone else. There's a really eclectic kind of student culture because of the kind of plethora of options that are out there. Just share a little bit about your experience on campus.
Yeah, so I think a regular BARD student is always busy. They're always doing more than one thing, and like that's just like that's just the culture of the campus. Like students do run a lot of the things that goes on when it comes to like different events, different like on campus like parties, functions, anything. I think students have a really huge hand in it. At BARD, I've done a lot of things that I never thought I could do. I was never a dancer, absolutely never. But then when I came here, like I participated in a bunch of dance clubs because that's something I find interesting. Also, there's a lot of good clubs just for like support. I know like that just like genuinely helps students. There's affinity clubs. Like I know that another counselor says that the student to club ratio is the same as the professor to student ratio. So like just to think of that, there's just so many options and so many things for you to do. And also there's club fairs, so you're able to just kind of like stroll down, like you can see like the main walk road towards the campus center, so you can kind of see what everyone is doing and like different options that you can do. So I always have fun. Like I love to fill up my time with like club meeting, club events, all that stuff. So I'm never bored, and I'm from the city, and I feel like anywhere that isn't Chicago is the middle of nowhere, but I never feel bored at BARD. And I'm like, that was something I was nervous about, and I'm really glad that that's just never the case while I'm here.
Yeah. Quad, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I'd say a lot of the times on the weekends, like, I mean, at least for me personally, I envision myself like going to the city every weekend, just because I was like in New York and I'm from Oklahoma. So I'm like, oh yeah, the city. And I realized that like most of the time, especially on the weekends, I actually never really had time to go to the city. And it wasn't because I didn't want to go to the city. It was because I was just so busy with like events, going to clubs, activities, stuff like that. And so now being the head of a club, I've taken on even more. So, I mean, it's kind of stressful sometimes, but at the same time, I feel like that's like that mentality of BARD students. It's like, we love to be a part of so much, and we love to do so much, and, you know, visit our friends' performances or be a part of dance clubs. I know I was a part of a dance club my first year and even performed at the international like cultural show. And so that was just an amazing experience. And I think that really shows like that BARD students aren't necessarily always doing one thing. They're doing everything. And I think that really shows with like how many clubs we have, for example. And it's very easy to start clubs. So yeah, just a little insight there.
Yeah. No, I think everyone really fills their time. And there's a lot to be learned from that too. I think the amount of ownership that students have over the student social scene ends up kind of teaching you, you know, as you say, Kwa, it can be kind of stressful because you're in charge and you're sort of having to put a budget together and go to budget forum and advocate for your club in front of the student government so that you can get funding and put on events. And, you know, that feels high stakes, but that's all also really important practice for like life after BARD. And I remember kind of being really grateful that I had those experiences as a part of my undergrad experience, because I used them in life after BARD when I was in graduate school or when I was advocating for something in my life as a staff member. So there's a lot to be learned from that experience too. I'm going to go through the rest of the slides pretty quickly, and please do start typing in your questions that you have, because that's definitely going to be our priority for the rest of our time together. BARD functions as a network. I just want to say a quick word about this. BARD exists in different ways throughout the world. We have a network of high school early colleges. We have a network of international campuses. We're a founding campus of the Open Society University Network, and we operate the largest prison education program in the country. There's an amazing documentary called College Behind Bars on Netflix and PBS and Amazon Prime that you should watch. It's a wonderful window into kind of the ethos of BARD as a place. And it's one of the best showcases of our curriculum that exists out there, I think. And again, this is about kind of seeing oneself as part of a bigger whole. And that's why civic engagement is a really important part of our academic ethos. It's a part of what students are engaged in, and it's a part of what students get to take ownership of. And the biggest example of that is our Trustee Leader Scholar program that pays students to run their own civic engagement projects. And Nike, I know you're involved in TLS, So if anyone has questions about this, please do ask, because it's an amazing opportunity for students to really take ownership of something that's meaningful to them, and make a really long-lasting contribution to the community in a way that's really meaningful and tangible. Sustainability is really important. The climate is changing. We're not delusional about that, and we have lots of ways of kind of contributing to how our community engages with that, including the Bard Farm. Residence life is a really important part of the campus community. If you have questions about this, please do ask and we can talk further about it. We have lots of different residence hall options, but we don't have themed housing. We don't have a Greek system. So I think that's important to know. Dining at Bard, if you have questions about the food, please do ask. Food, I think, is a really, really important part of life for all Bard students, even though everyone has different tastes and I think engages with it differently. But ours is, I think one of the defining features is that we have this kind of farm to table piece of how food exists on campus because of the farms on campus, which is great. Athletics, we're Division III in terms of varsity athletics. So if you're interested in student athletics, please do ask. Nike is a student athlete. And Kwa is also really involved in fitness. So please do ask about athletics if you have questions about it. Outcomes, Bard students are successful. 96% of our 2019 graduates were either employed or in graduate school or in a fellowship program 6 months after graduating. We're a top producer of Fulbright and Watson Fellows, which are amazing programs that give you tens of thousands of dollars to basically do whatever you want overseas for a year. It's amazing. There are lots of different ways to apply to Bard. The main thing to know is just that you should apply in the way that's going to work for you. Apply at the time that you're going to submit your strongest application. We've been test optional for over 40 years. We know that this is COVID. We know that everyone is experiencing disruptions right now. We've always been very context-based in our process, and just know that we will see you and we will read your application at least twice before we make a decision on it. So we really do care about the qualitative pieces, regardless of how and when you apply. And as you can see, most students apply regular decision. So there's no direct advantage to applying early at Bard. We don't front load our class with early decision folks. And we give a lot of money. That's a really important part of accessibility at Bard. 71% of students receive really generous financial aid, and a big part of our mission is making Bard affordable. And that's the end of the slides. So let's get to your questions. What type of opportunities are there for live music on campus? I can speak to this, but Nike and Kwa, I'd love your perspectives too.
Yeah, I was gonna say the music scene it's everywhere. It truly is. I was trying to hone on down to like a couple of like, larger events where people really showcase their music, whether it be in the Root Cellar, Smog, but I was also thinking like the cultural show. Also there's like weekly, like, what's it called? Like performances, like literally weekly performances that happen in the campus center, actually, where people just come out and perform, whether it be on the guitar, piano, they want to sing, rap, whatever. That literally happens like every week. So yeah, what about you, Nike?
Yeah, I'd also want to point out like Smog, which is like Smog and Root Cellar, which are two completely like student-run venues on campus that brings in a lot of Bard bands and all that stuff. If you're more into like, if you want to actually like do this and study like music within college, we do have a music program, and we also have the conservatory that's really cool on campus. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that was a really great summary. It's inescapable. What does study abroad look like? I know it looks, Nike, I know you want to talk about this. It looks so different in the time of COVID, but.
Yeah, it's because I was actually filling out my petition earlier today. So I was like, so I got you covered. Study abroad at Bard, it's really cool. There's a lot of really good programs. Our study abroad office is honestly one of the reasons why I was like, one of like the main deciding reasons for me to come to Bard, strictly because there's just so many options, as well as there's a lot of good like options, for example, like tuition exchange. And I know someone also asked about Begin in Berlin, which is also another way to study abroad as a first year, where you'll do like basically the first year canon in Berlin. And I've heard a lot of really cool things about that. But I really do love the study abroad office. They've been doing a lot of good work, and I think kind of different from other schools, like Bard wants to make sure you're doing the same work that you would do at Bard abroad, and you don't have to necessarily do a Bard program like Bard Berlin. I'm looking at Kyunghee University and University College Roosevelt, which are in the Netherlands and South Korea. But also you can like apply with a program, an outside or with an outside provider, and like Bard just wants to make sure that you're still kind of like doing the same level of like academic rigor, because we really want to like enforce, because I was told this so many times, it's not just a fun vacation. They fully expect you to be a student living abroad. And like, that's an expectation. And I really think, I encourage you to look at the website. There's a lot of really good resources just to kind of like understand what college abroad looks like.
Yeah. Is there study abroad for student athletes? Yes.
Oh yeah, my coach was chill with this. She told me to go. Like, she was like, literally go. You'll regret it if you don't. So yeah.
And just to clarify quickly, Bard has international campuses that are freestanding. So they exist both for students to study full-time on those campuses and get a Bard degree, and also as opportunities for students to study abroad. So we have this really interesting sort of network of campuses that allow for kind of different types of experiences. What are some of Bard's traditions? I love that Bard doesn't actually hold fast to tradition. I think that's really important.
Some of the ones that I'm thinking of are like ISO cultural show. I've been saying that a lot, and I think that's a really cool tradition. It allows everyone to kind of like showcase what they think is very valuable about the culture, and I think that's really unique. Also, I was thinking about matriculation. I feel like that's also a tradition where you're kind of, it's a matriculation for first years, but it's like a more fun event to kind of get you like excited for the semester. Also, like we have a ton of the galas, like Asian gala, women's gala, women colors gala, and I feel like those are kind of traditions as well that I love attending.
Yeah. What's it like for queer students on campus?
I'd say it's a very comfortable and safe environment. Like I personally came from like a very conservative state, so like I very much feel this question of like, what is it like? And I'd say on campus there's a very big queer community. I gotta be honest, like I feel like a majority of students on campus are queer, but that's just my opinion. But there's a lot of clubs, there's a lot of you know, I think events that center on trying to make it a more inclusive environment for everyone. I hope that answers that question. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that was helpful. Hopefully it was helpful for the asker. What does the extracurricular theater program look like? We can definitely talk a little bit about this. Theater is an academic program at Bard, but you can engage with it very effectively as a non-major. So you can take as many theater courses as you want and be in the departmental productions, even if you're not majoring in theater. It's not a conservatory program, so there's no audition for it. But we do also have a really active Bard musical theater company that's completely run by students, and a space called the Old Gym that's a completely student-run performance space. That's a really important space for completely student-run theater if you don't want to have anything to do with the theater program for whatever reason. But theater happens in so many different ways at Bard, and it's really easy to be involved. And there are lots of different types of theater that happen on campus as well. If there's one thing you could change about Bard, what would it be? And in another word, what lacks in your school? It's a good question.
That is a really good question. I think, especially when I think Bard's doing the best they can in terms of, it's difficult to say because like I think with all the issues that I've had with Bard, I was actively able to get involved in order to try and rectify them. So I don't necessarily see them too much as issues, but anymore, as much as I did before. But I think when going to any predominantly white institution, there will be kind of struggle, and there will be definitely like a class divide, a race divide. Like it's just kind of the inherent of being in college and being in higher education. But I definitely think that Bard's a school that's open for conversation, which I absolutely did not expect when coming here. So if anything, I just think more dialogue is what I would change, because I absolutely value all the things that I've learned, all the conversations that I've had, no matter how difficult they were, while being here. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that was an awesome answer. And that's one of the things that I think is true too, is that like all of your frustrations do generally, there is a venue that you can find to actually kind of make change. And that can be hard, and it does require effort, and it requires energy, and you know, that can involve its own challenges of just like bandwidth and time. But the hardest thing for me is when there are sort of grievances against the campus that I feel like are totally solvable, but there just isn't the effort put in to fix the problems, which requires change on the administrative side too. But I think BARD, among higher educational institutions, has more flexibility than a lot out there. There are a lot of questions about kind of admissions and kind of what we're kind of thinking will happen with people who deferred, and whether that means we'll admit fewer students, what our admissions requirements are. We don't have any hard and fast admissions requirements. We don't require you to have specific scores or a specific GPA. We really see students in the context that they're coming from. And we really want to look at what type of student you are, and whether you're really going to do well in the kind of participatory academic environment that BARD offers. So it's not really about grades and test scores, which I think is important. And I think we're anticipating having to be thoughtful about how to manage application numbers in the time of COVID, knowing that we had a smaller incoming class this year. And so it might actually be okay to have a bigger incoming class next year, but we'll just have to see what things look like as people apply. I think in some ways we don't really know what to anticipate until the application deadline hits. And yes, there are interviews available. And it's really just an opportunity to connect with an admissions counselor who's a friendly person that wants to chat with you. We have reached the end of our time together, but if there were unanswered questions, I know there are a few unanswered questions here that we didn't get to, but we'll be getting a rundown of these questions, and so we can follow up with you all over email. I really appreciate you all being here tonight. Thanks again for joining us. And we wish you all the best. Nike and Kwa, I don't know if you have any final words.
I'm just trying to answer questions.
I know.
Thank you guys for coming. I hope you guys make the best decision for you. If you're interested in BARD, like, I'm definitely more than willing to give out my contact information. Like, hit me up. I'm here. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you all for coming out. I hope this was really informative and useful for you all during your college exploration. So good luck to everyone.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining. Take good care, everyone.
So everyone, thanks for joining us this evening. If there will be a quick survey as you finish and close out the screen, would appreciate you filling that out. Sign up for more sessions, and also remember that this has been recorded and available for use later on. Thank you to BARD for presenting this evening. Everybody have a great night, and good luck. Bye-bye.